The role of an assistant is to make sure the head coach has what he wants on Saturdays. All these kids, they want to be great. That's what I tell them. I want you to be great, but you got to put in the work. Bo and Dylan, they worked harder than anybody else in the building. It was hard for us to ever think we weren't going to win the game with them on the field. You got to be on the same wavelength. You know, Dylan and I last year, we would say like we're on the same Wi-Fi. You know, like you got to be in unison. You got to be in sync. We always start over. Right when we were done the season, it's all about how do we get better? How do we improve? I think everybody kind of saw our growing pains early on. Everybody wants to point at one particular group, but it was our entire staff, our entire offense. We all needed to get better. I just try to do a good job where I'm at and really just dive into these kids and their lives. And you know, I dab all the offensive guys up every single practice, but I also try to go to the defense side of the ball and dab those kids up too, because I know it takes them to win as well. You gotta be a guy that wants to give back. You know, we're all so selfish when we're born, like we're all takers, but like, what are you doing to give back to your community, to this program? And to me, that's what it's all about. And I know that's all cliche. Yeah. That was all coach talk.
Now we are joined by Will Stein, Oregon offensive coordinator. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
When you finish a season like last year, you have one of the most explosive offenses in the country. You have a great offense. How do you start over? You got a new quarterback. Like, how does that work in terms of building for next year?
Well, we always start over. Like right when we were done the season, it's all about how do we get better? How do we improve? Dan talks about going to the doctor. You know, you go to the doctor when you feel good too, and when you don't feel good. So obviously we had a great season, but it didn't end the way that we wanted it. So we're going back and just looking at the tape. Let the tape tell us who we are as a team, who we are as an offense. So the entire month of February, we've basically been doing self-scout. You know, re-evaluating our own calls, our own schemes, techniques, fundamentals. And then installing it back to the players just from day one. You got to start somewhere. We have a lot of new additions, not just freshmen, but guys from the portal, and then guys that might not have played a ton of ball last year for us on Saturdays, but we're expecting big things from this season. So we always start from the ground roots of our offense and then mold it based on our players and what we think is best for the season.
You hear the word, as it relates to offensive coordinators or defensive coordinators, system. This is their system, but the players have to dictate the system, right?
Totally. And it starts with our quarterback. You know, we always want to play through his lens because he touches the ball every single snap for us, and he makes most of the decisions for us on offense. So it really starts there, but then it bleeds into, you know, offensive line. You know, where are we strong? Is it the outside? Is it the inside? Are we going to be more inside zone oriented or outside zone? And then, you know, it bleeds out into the perimeter with our playmakers, you know, on the edge and how they can function in the heat of a battle. But it molds each year. You know, I think the core principles stay intact, but how we dress that up formationally, personnel groupings changes throughout each season.
And how does it mold during the actual season? Because this last year, you didn't really see any quarterback run in the beginning of the season. You see more of it toward the end. Is that intentional? Is it planned? Like, what's the process with that?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously were trying to figure ourselves out early on in the year. I think everybody kind of saw our growing pains early on, and you know, everybody wants to point at one particular group, but it was our entire staff, our entire offense. We all needed to get better. We all needed to kind of figure it out with new players. And the only way you really get better is to play the game on Saturdays. We can practice all we want, and we practice better than any place I've ever been. We do competitive periods every single day, but you know how it is. You really get good playing the game. With the bright lights on, with the fans in the stands. That's when you can really, you know, allow yourself to reflect on, okay, this looked really good in fall camp. We felt really confident about it, but hey, right now it might not be what we want to do. We're still really good at this. Let's just focus on these little things to propel us throughout the year. So yeah, it changes, it molds, but you know, that's why, you know, we practice and that's why we go out there and play.
How much does the head coach factor into the assistant? I mean, because he's the coach of the coaches, or, you know, kind of sets the tempo for everything. How does his approach to defense, being that he was more of a defensive guy, or just his philosophies at all, impact, you know, your system?
The role of an assistant is to make sure the head coach has what he wants on Saturdays. So it all stems through Dan and his vision of what he wants his offense to look like, then pair it with what I feel like, you know, we're really good at, and my expertise in a, you know, specific scheme or formation or grouping, and then it bleeds into our assistants, and we all work together on this. Dan is as innovative as an offensive coach as he is a defensive. He brings me stuff throughout the week that whether he says, hey, I want this in, or hey, have you seen this play or this scheme? This is really tough on defenses. Does this fit with what you guys are doing this week? And it's either a yes or it's, hey, maybe this might fit for the next opponent. He has no ego. He loves when his ideas come to light, you know, just like anybody does.
Yeah.
But he also understands that there's a rhythm and a flow to offense that, hey, this might not be the week for us to run this type of scheme because we need a week of grooming this and getting good at it before we want to go out and run it in live action. So he's innovative. He's easy to work for. And he really, I think, puts the plan in place on how he wants to play football.
Can you talk about the relationship between a quarterback and the offensive coordinator?
Yeah, I'm not sure, you know, there's a more important relationship in our sport, especially on our side of the ball, than that. You know, now in college football, I get to talk to him up to 15 seconds before, you know, the ball snapped, which is different than what we've been used to in the past. So the player to coach communication has changed. But yeah, you got to be on the same wavelength. You know, Dylan and I last year, we would say like we're on the same Wi-Fi. You know, like you got to be in unison. You got to be in sync. I think it's important for a quarterback to be able to anticipate the next call. Like first, third, and 4 to 6, he knew exactly what I was getting to because we met on it 3 days prior and set our list of third downs in the order that we wanted to call these. So he's able to play fast and free and then be able to anticipate the play call.
You've had the pleasure of having, you know, NFL quarterback in Bo Nix for a year and now with Dylan Gabriel. What has that been like working with veteran quarterbacks and, you know, guys that had already played a lot of football before you really got your hands on them and they were the starter?
It's really nice to have, I'll tell you that much. You know, it really is. But more than anything, those guys were growth mindset oriented. They always wanted to get better. They asked as many questions as a rookie or a freshman. That's what separated Bo and Dylan, is that they were always striving for perfection, knowing that they could catch excellence along the way. You know, that's some old Vince Lombardi quote, or Bill Walsh, you know, whoever said it first. But that's how they were, and that's what made them so special to coach, is that they were never satisfied. And if they threw a perfect ball, they felt like they could throw it even better. And it was my job to get that out of them, you know, on a daily basis. But they made me a better coach because of the questions that they asked, the way that they approached the game, how they see the game was unique and different than anybody had ever coached up to this point in my career. And but they've set the standard to me for what it looks like currently at Oregon. This is what we're striving for at this position, and it's great that guys like Austin and Dante and Luke and Brock Thomas, other guys that have been in the room the last 2 years or even just last year, they saw what a professional looks like and saw what the preparation it takes to play at that level on Saturdays. Because a lot of people can play on Saturdays and get the job done, but they played at such a level that it was hard for us to ever think we weren't going to win the game with them on the field, which that's what we're all striving for. All these kids, they want to be great. That's what I tell them. I want you to be great, but you got to put in the work, you know, and Bo and Dylan, they worked. They worked harder than anybody else in the building.
This year you're going to have a new quarterback, where regardless of who that turns out to be. What are the things that you're looking for in terms of choosing who the quarterback will be? I mean, obviously everybody knows. Oh, well, if he's accurate, if he throws, I mean, what are the other things that you're looking for outside of literally just throwing the football?
Yeah, I think it really boils down to just having command of the offense, being able for me to call a play into their ear and for them to call it right in the huddle, for them to get to the line of scrimmage with enough time to potentially change the protection, change the run scheme, being able to read the defense and then go to the correct place with the ball. And I know that's all cliche. That was all coach talk. But it's really that simple. You know, everybody wants to see some flashy plays and deep balls. Those come as you play within the scheme. Like if you have an alert built in and it's one high man and you have an inside fade, well, that's the alert. Hold the safety in the middle of the field with your eyes, 3-step, no hitch, put the ball up to the numbers at 42 yards and drop it in a bucket. Like that's what I'm expecting. And not have guys that go back and, oh, where am I supposed to go with the ball? Like just play within yourself, play within the scheme, and then your talents will shine. So it is cliche, it is coach talk, but it's the truth. Like, I mean, we want guys that can move the ball from point A to point B and score touchdowns. And those are the guys that end up playing and doing well.
When you're looking for a high school quarterback, right? What are the things that you're looking for? Because I'm around a lot of quarterbacks. I got 2 quarterback sons, and their parents ask me, what are guys looking for? So what are they looking for? What are you looking for?
Well, just like anything, you always start with size. Like you do. If you were just to like, let's close your eyes, envision what your quarterback's going to look like in terms of size, weight, speed. Now, not every kid falls into those categories. So what do they have to make up for it? To me, the number one thing in playing quarterback at our level is really two things. It's anticipation and accuracy.
Yeah.
Like I've seen kids with great arms, big arms, but they're under 60% as a high school quarterback. Yeah. You have to be above 70% in high school to function at this level for a national championship caliber quarterback. Yeah. I'm not talking about an 8-win team. We can find a lot of kids that can complete 63%. I want guys that can complete over 70. And how do you do that? You have to have great anticipation, have great timing. But then again, accuracy to me is huge. In today's modern football, mobility is critical. That doesn't mean I need a Lamar, I don't need a Michael Vick, but I need to do like Teddy Bridgewater that can get out of trouble. I need a guy like Pat Mahomes that can move and maneuver. Even Aaron Rodgers in his prime can maneuver. So guys like that, to me, separate themselves from the rest. And then, guys that are dogs, like guys that when they're on the field, it's hard for them to lose. Yeah. And they're so hyper competitive and love football because we practice a lot and we walk through a lot and we meet a lot. If you don't love football at the quarterback position, you got no chance.
I would imagine you have aspirations of being a head coach one day, and so does, probably most coaches. How do you balance your own personal with staying where your feet are?
It's what got me this job. I tried to do a great job at UTSA. We had a top 10 offense in the country, and I was not looking to leave at all. I was working for a man that, was like a second father to me, and with guys that I had known for a long time. And I'm a firm believer in that. Be where your feet are. Do a great job at the job that you're at, and the goals and aspirations, could potentially follow. At least you set yourself up for those. You don't always get it. A lot of people, I've been doing a good job for so many years. Like, when does this happen? Well, there's a lot of things that gotta happen, and factors gotta play a part. But I just try to do a good job where I'm at, and really just dive into these kids and their lives. And I dab all the offensive guys up every single practice, but I also try to go to the defense side of the ball and dab those kids up too, because I know it takes them to win as well. So. But yeah, it's hard. We are very busy. There's not a lot of balance in our profession. But then when I do get my time with my family, like, that's precious to me. And so I try to have my little boy up here all the time, my wife, all of our family dinners up here. They're always here. And when I go home, like, my number one job is to be a dad. I know it's about recruiting and still calling, but I'm going to prioritize my 2 little kids and my wife over anything, all day, every day.
As you should, because if that ain't right, bro.
It's not. And our players see that. We talk so much about football, but football, I was told, it goes flat. The ball's going to go flat one day. And if you're done playing by the time you're 35, and that'd be a hell of a career.
That's a hell of a career. Right before I was 30.
Right. That's 12 years in the league, which we all know that doesn't happen very often. But you got another 50 plus years of life. Like, what else are you doing with it? So you got to be a guy that wants to give back, and we're all so selfish when we're born. Like, we're all takers, but like, what are you doing to give back to your community, to this program? And to me, that's what it's all about.
You guys, he is Will Stein, offensive coordinator for the Oregon Ducks. Thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate your time.
Appreciate you, brother.